That would keep that school
Keep
open.
that school open for sure.
Absolutely.
Sorry, please go ahead.
My name is Sage. I'm here
Hi,
to
Sage.
interpret, but I'm also a resident nearby.
Oh,
I
great.
can't hear you at all.
My name is Sage, and I live off of St. Michael's.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to also answer your
Yeah,
question.
no, please do.
I'm currently using the space to attend the community art closet every third Saturday by Vital Spaces with Rashawn Ahmad.
And where is that held?
They're held at the Art Institute, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I would
right.
say.
So you come in here and go over to
Okay,
the Santa
got
Art
it.
Institute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really awesome because I can bring my neighbors. It's a predominantly low-income neighborhood, subsidized by the city's housing authority. And we're all concerned about gentrification. If the prices were to, if you sold it to a capitalist, and they made something that would drive the prices up, it would affect us
In
all.
your neighborhood, yeah, that would affect everybody.
Yeah, and we want,
Yeah.
I just wanted to contribute by mentioning there's hundreds of elderly people, underprivileged elderly, and hundreds of students all around that neighborhood, and workers, families, and we would like the space to be made into something that we could have access to.
Yeah, that's super helpful.
Would you join us, Sage?
I'm sorry, can you tell me your name again?
Sage.
Sage. Thank you so much, Sage. And thanks for joining us.
Thanks for
So,
So you live in Hopewell neighborhood?
Yes.
Yeah,
Hopewell
great.
and Second.
And Second, okay.
So, Mary, you talked a little bit about, you started to touch on some issues about access and connectivity.
Yeah.
And Sage, you're actually touching on some issues about displacement and sort of the potential negative impact on the neighborhood.
Right. We're going to have
As well
the
as
same thing for
access.
our
Well,
neighborhood
it's
as well.
also the potential positive impact.
Right.
Because
That's really
now
good,
we
yeah.
don't, they don't
So-
have access and it's something that's
Right.
to be created.
I want to sort
Right.
of,
There's no crossing.
Yeah.
And in order to really get into the campus, you have to go from St. Mike's down Llano to Alumni Drive and
Right.
drive in the
Oh,
south
wow.
way because there's no pedestrian access
so I'd
here.
like
And it's
to
really
talk
dangerous.
a little bit more about this connectivity issue and sort of the challenges that all of you sort of experience with getting to the campus, but also just thinking to the district, but also thinking about how those things might be overcome. And then I would actually love to talk a little bit about these other issues about sort of how it might be impacting the neighborhood in a positive or a negative way.
From your perspective, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, some of the things that came
Well,
up.
the other thing is that
Yeah, go
Alumni
ahead, Mary.
Drive is not acceptable. No.
Sage has a.
Yeah, go ahead, Sage.
There's this cultural park in Caracas, Venezuela,
Oh, wow.
called
Okay.
Tuna El Fuerte, Cultural Park Tuna El Fuerte. They actually received a prize by UNESCO.
Mm.
And what it is a public space for the youth and everyone to explore their talents. So there's a dance studio there, for a photographer, there's a dark room, and it's all public. So
Okay.
everybody has access to a computer lab for poets and library. And I just wanted to mention it because
No, that's
Santa
fine.
Fe might need the teenagers, on behalf of the youth, they
Yeah.
always complain there isn't anything to do. So if you build infrastructures that support their underground social movements, it will help prevention. With prevention, they won't get in trouble.
That's super
And,
helpful.
and I think it's really important for Santa Fe to have spaces where we could gather in community.
Yeah.
And
No.
I really enjoyed attending concerts there and art shows. And also it could be funded through the federal grants that you can ask for with the SAMS number, the city, whatever, SAMS and DUNS number. You could find, there's so many grants around the arts that you could find public space.
Yeah, and that's another another opportunity here with putting a plan together is if there are public improvement projects, we can match those to future funding sources. And that's something that's planned. Go ahead, Mary.
I grew up in Chicago, so for me it's Grant Park in Chicago. But it's suffered in the last 20.
I suggest you allocate a small space to be ran by the youth and for the youth.
Where did you learn about that project?
I attended dance classes there when I was a youth. I grew up there. And you?
Right.
I'm from it. Oh, cool.
Right.
Yeah, I went to Venezuela when I was a baby with my mom, and I grew up in this remote village on the Pacific. And so like 2 or 3 hours away is Caracas, the big city. And in Caracas they made this tuna. It was government funded because they had
Fuerte
this
tuna?
tuna fuerte. Tuna. They've got a UNESCO prize.
Yeah, the railroad spur.
Cultural Park Tuna El Fuerte. They got a prize. Yes, so they basically built it.
And so you see, this is very
Big containers.
And so there's
And so
with recycled material,
very sustainable, very much so. And there's spaces for photographers if you don't have money for like your darkroom. The government funds it and it's there. So if you like dancing, there's a network of teachers that teach you dance. So there's like studios and they also founded a TV channel called Alvin TV.
So there are more street trees here. It's still operating.
Yeah, even though they're like blocked and there's like an economic work. And like even though millions of Venezuelans are leaving.
No, it wasn't to have street.
But they do concerts there. You should send this article to yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to. I have the name on the bottom.
Yeah,
But I just wanted to,
so like in Santa Fe there's so much talent, but there isn't really outlets. So these youth, they end up leaving town or they don't get to explore their talents. And so with the space like this, it just mobilizes the whole community and it creates this and then the youth
No, this is not city sewer. They've got
all the high schools can they're like send their students to this.
So do you work with these people or what's the connection?
I live around right here,
This
like 5 blocks.
and you go east to this is the state but this
I really by
Oh, you do?
here and then right here. Every Saturday there's an event. It's called the Community Art Class. He's an international known artist, but he conducts community events in town. And right now he runs the community art class and he gives. It's really good to have somebody like him in town. But there's been concerts right there. Like, what are they? Are they from your neighborhood? Or they come from somewhere else? The people that attend that event are vendors who are artists who want to sell their stuff. And also donors who have the money to donate art supplies. And then the families like us who go to pick up supplies for the children to make stuff. It's they're gonna sell it to somebody and then they put it to something fancy and then they'll figure out what they do with it. Like what happened with So what happened with Meow Wolf is right after they came in, the property prices all around rent, something else for tourists, not for tourists. Like our own community doesn't have access to it.
Do they have bars?
They have like 1 day a month where it's like better priced.
I see. Okay.
So they went to Colorado and they bought it in a really poor neighborhood, bought land for expensive and created a new mill. And the same thing happened all around.
Site, that process actually, Sage, do you want to add, even if you touched on what you said before?
Yeah, I have good memories attending, going to the movie theater with my children. their alternative films, and it's great to support. And also the community art closet happens every third Saturday of the month at the old library. So you walk in and it's right there, and there's music and the community comes through. It's usually 11 to 3. And I'd love for that to continue to happen, or to have infrastructure built for that, events like that, and concerts.
To sustain those kinds of events.
Yeah, that's what, people just getting together and sharing culture.
Yeah.
And for the youth around the neighborhood to have access to that space and have learning opportunities which they should have.
Thank you.
Rather than purchased, so that the city maintains the ownership of the property.
It could take 10 years, could take 20 years, but we're also moving forward now with various actions that will fit within this larger thing.
But I think it's a good question. I mean, one of the reasons why we wanted people, I'm Daniel Hernandez, I've been working on the redevelopment project with this team and city staff for a couple of years now, but one of the things we knew going out the door was it's 64 acres and it doesn't happen overnight. But what's really important is to focus on what you know today, but be flexible for what could potentially happen in the future. So we know sites like this can last anywhere from 5, 7, 10, sometimes 12, but depending on the market cycles and the future of Santa Fe, how it grows or doesn't grow. And those are kind of be the variables along the way. But right now, we want to set the stage for what we want to see there, and as well as what we don't want to see there. And that's why it's really important to engage in these conversations with everyone.
That's a good approach.
Okay, so in a couple of years. But that's kind of the time frame that these things sort of happen. So we're going to be 5 or 6 years in before we sort of see much that's substantial.
How easy is it for the city to say that they decide to allocate 10% of the 64 acres to reinvest in the youth who live in the area? How easy would it be for them to go to grants.gov and apply for grants to fund the programs for that 10% of allotted space and buildings that is meant to invest back in the youth of the community?
I think that's definitely, it's definitely a sort of a viable strategy, but there would be programs that could be funded by future grant opportunities. I think what would probably be best for the city is to ensure that there sort of are perpetual sources of funding to support those programs.
Does the city have a SIMS number and a DUNS number to apply for grants?
I actually don't know. That's a great question, but
It matters.
so sort of sustaining that access,
Right.
easy access, is important for all people.
Yeah.
You brought that up earlier too.
Yeah.
Folks from your neighborhood being able to get on the campus is pretty important.
And also access as far as like educational opportunities, for example, because all the low-income housing apartment complex that surrounds the area, the hundreds of children who live there, they don't have access to go to a summer camp that costs $300 a week. So if if the city commits to allocating a small portion into investing in educational opportunities or investing in infrastructure to support their social movements, like there's skateboarders, poets who don't have a computer, or artists who don't have art supplies, or dancers who don't have a dance studio. These are the youth of Santa Fe who, if we invest in, will definitely return, tenfold back into the city. So when I said access, I didn't mean like a means to getting there.
Not always physical access.
Access as far as
Yeah.
having the opportunity.
That's fair. I appreciate that. Thank you for that. So, Daniel, did you want to?
I just wanted to let everyone know that the mayor's here and you may want to say hi, but then I just thank everybody for talking and participating in a session like this. And this is Michael Pride, who is responsible for a lot of bringing you here, and so I want to make sure you know Michael Pride. She's the director of the Design and Assistance Program at Center at the UNM.
All those things are very important, but as an architect, I am concerned with the physical access. The way that you get into the campus right now is not very nice. And it doesn't really tie into the city very well. It's like a fortress.
Mhm.
It's hard to get in there. The campus was, I think, was set up so that there was a connection to Cerrillos Road, and one of the sort of overall architects.
The master
sponsored-
developer, yeah.
One of the plans was to have an access from
Between
Cerrillos
Cerrillos
Road and the campus, and so I think that's something to be thought about and considered.
Yeah, that's helpful, and we can probably touch on that, and that we had a good conversation about that in the last session, that the connectivity right now is really limited.
Together a coalition of arts organizations that are interested in occupying part of the campus, and these are local organizations, and so that's as tenants, yes,
Yeah.
for the visual arts.
Yeah, right.
Can I add anything?
Hubs that are being developed and the opinions, the valid opinions of those of us, whether it be professional or, simply of the citizenry, are wonderful as it relates, and then ultimately is it viable? Is it something that's going to be affordable, be able to be financed and so forth? So I would like to understand a little better, and maybe there's something that's written or that we could look at as well, because I think for those of us, I'd like to make sure that my opinions are respectfully take into consideration the work that's been done and what's been learned. The best example perhaps is that the infrastructure of many of the buildings were determined by the past company that was going to develop it to be, they're worthless. I mean, to be honest, right? That's a big change, obviously, from the vision and where things were in 2018, if you will. And so, it's about being, the point was made earlier, it's about being realistic with, not that the wants and desires aren't valid.
I appreciate that, Jeff, and I think the best way to sort of think about this is that the general direction of the Midtown District Planning Guidelines, right, that were adopted by the governing body in 2018, those still hold validity. There is lots. Thank you.
One of the things is that the way that you enter the campus right now is not only difficult, but it doesn't at all celebrate the space. And I think that is going to be important for me, for the community. It's going to be important that you feel invited into this campus, wherever you come from, wherever in the city you're coming. And I think part of that is sort of a cutting edge sort of campus, so that celebrates sustainability. Really exciting, because I think in general, seeing some of that history of Santa Fe is going to be important. If there's going to be new buildings, a sprinkling or something of the old Santa Fe is going to be really important to see.
I could build one.
Yes, his question?
We're not trying to build in Austin.
Yeah.
Build in Chicago.
So
But
let's talk
all
about
of
what that
Santa Fe,
means.
because we have a black population, indigenous, Hispanic.
Awful. We have that all around. We don't need any more. I think.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Was something about the Manhattan Project that was right there on
The
the side.
Manhattan Project, I'm not saying go back to the Manhattan
No,
Project.
but I'm
Please
saying,
don't
well, that's
mistake me.
whether, for whatever reason, I mean, that is a very important piece of Santa Fe
Yeah,
history.
it is.
And that's
because-
something that's unique to that spot, not to glorify it, but as a
Right.
historic.
But to,
but that's
but
something
to
that
at
we
least
need.
recognize it. And I think that Santa Fe Art Institute, their project, all of that stuff was a good start. But this city does not recognize that there was this huge facility here. They think they're airport.
What was there before that? How do we
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
it's not
before
like
that,
a-
it was Tiwa land of the graves, their sheep on it.
So there might be it might be a burial site for indigenous.
It might
I
be.
don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It could be though.
But it's a.
No, I've
it's a-
talked to
all of the
people
Americas.
about that, and there doesn't seem to be any of that. There is not
Right.
Before the military.
And SFAI has actually been very good about
They've
that.
been great.
They may have research on what that historic
Right, right.
SFAI, Santa Fe Art Institute, which I'm on the board of, and it's in the corner of the
The
campus.
corner,
Yes.
yeah.
And also, The barracks, I believe, are from
The
the
Midtown
Japanese
camp.
internment camp.
Oh.
No,
I think so.
no, they're from Vistas Barracks all along here. I have a photograph that shows
Yeah.
it. This was barracks and adjutant quarters here. All of the 1800s. They were part of an original land grant.
I
From
think
this-
it's important
from
to
the
plan
Spanish.
for the future problem. Yeah, to plan what this community need in the future and
The needs now after this pandemic. Everybody's thinking about it. And, you know,
Yeah.
we should see that as an opportunity.
it would be neat to see how.
Thank you.
Thank you. It would be neat to see how we could, the people, as artists in town, and if there's a gallery show or a wall for the graffiti artists, then it could drive folks to come and check it out.
Thank you, Sage. Thank you.
And the implications are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So last presidential election, some candidates ran with promising reparations and whatnot, and universal basic income. I think the city should consider allocating a percentage of the 64 acres to do something like that, like land back movement. And also there's a nonprofit in town called Black Health in Mexico, and they're looking for land. And I think you should consider reparations and the land back movement fair.
No, I think, yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
And that could speak to the thing that's unique to Santa Fe.
Yeah. Local arts organizations that SFAI has put together to occupy the Visual Arts Center. I think that should be, and I know the city has said that this is something that they're considering, but it's way far in the future. But it's something that should be looked at closely because it gives the community some sort of foothold in this, on this campus right now, soon or so. Okay?
Thanks for that, Richard.
Yes.
So just a couple of folks who are on the campus at 5 o'clock tonight.
5 to 6.
Starts, yeah,
right.
from 5 to 6, and that's going to be followed by a presentation and sort of a community activity that we'll do together.